Good evening. I'm Dr. Mark Andrew Holochak. You know me as the Thomas Jefferson scholar, philosopher, historian, and author of 26 books and numerous essays on Thomas Jefferson. And I'd like to welcome you to episode 2 of The Real Thomas Jefferson. And what this series is maybe a snapshot. What I aim to do is give you a snapshot into the mind of Thomas Jefferson by looking at some aspects of his writings and trying to decipher what he meant when he wrote what he wrote. Today, I want to look at his first draft of the Declaration of Independence and from there try to figure out what he meant by liberty and equality. And this is really, a primer for my soon to come out book, The Disease of Liberty, Thomas Jefferson on history, liberty, a history and liberty, coming out with Vernon Press shortly. But anyways, in his first draft of the Declaration, a draft that he gives to Benjamin Franklin and John Adams before they make their relatively cosmetic alterations, Jefferson writes, "All men are created equal and independent. From that equal creation they derive rights inherent and inalienable, among which are the preservation of life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness." Now, what's critical to notice here is he talks about starting with human beings being equal and independent. Doesn't use liberty, use independence. And he says, from that equal creation, he's not talking about the independence here, but from that equal creation, they derive rights inherent and inalienable. And of those rights, one is the right to liberty. And liberty here is a social construct. So, what's the difference between independence and liberty? I think independence is the sort of freedom we have as a biological animal born on this planet. We are as free, we are as independent as any other animal born, or any other animal. Yeah, just leave it at animal. Um, and from that equal creation, he talks about desert of liberty. So we want to get at just in what sense are human beings equal? That they are deserving of liberty, which is a social construct, which is a social concept, right? So that when placed in a social setting, they are deserving of each is deserving of the same amount of freedom and dignity and so forth that all other human beings can have. Now, Thomas Kidd aims to solve that problem in a recent book. Thomas Kidd comes at Jefferson from a religionist's perspective. He says that the thing is, all we can solve the sense of equality by noting that for Jefferson, God created all humans in his image and likeness. And because of that, we have a status superior to all other created things. The problem with that is simple, is that Jefferson would have laughed at that notion that humans were created in God's image and likeness. He thought very little of the Old Testament and gives no indication that he thinks humans have a status that enables them to be superior to other created creatures on the planet. So Kidd's solution is rather tendentious, rather self-serving, and I find it very, very unattractive. Right? Doesn't do the job. What if we had a weaker version that God didn't create all humans in his image and likeness, but he created all human beings, right? And he created them with an essence that makes them superior to it distinguishes them from other human beings and makes them superior to them, right? So that solves the problem, right? In a sense that all humans have that status, right? So they're equal in that sense. So they're superior to other human beings. But this again is tendentious and it solves the problem by a fiat. It just decrees that humans are. Where does Jefferson say that humans have a basic dignity? Humans have an essence, right, that distinguishes them from other creatures and humans and makes them superior to other human beings. One might argue, well, humans have a sense of rationality, but Jefferson is clear in numerous places that human sense of rationality is not that important in human affairs, right? Very few people have a superior sense of rationality. There are very few Bacons and Newtons and Galileos and Boyles and other such people. So that weaker version falters as well. So what if we come to an even weaker version that God created all humans and humans have an essence that distinguishes them from other creatures. Therefore, humans are deserving of equality, and from that equality, we can get at their deserving of liberty. Well, that doesn't help much. It helps even less than the second version because, all creatures have an essence, Jefferson would have thought, that distinguishes them from other, creatures. So, what is it? By virtue of what are humans deserving of a liberty in a social setting, right? The right to liberty, and as well as the rights to life and human happiness, okay, and happiness. So we have to try to understand by virtue of what, are humans deserving of these things. And we have an additional problem. I thought initially we could solve the problem just by appealing to the moral sense. Well, humans have a moral sense. Other animals don't. Humans can sense right or wrong and certain other things, and other animals don't. So, and in other writings, I settled on that, and that seems to be a very attractive solution. Problem is when you read on, you read some of the same letters over and over and over, you find things that are disobliging. Here's a letter to John Adams in 1816. He says, I believe that the moral sense is instinct and innate, that the moral sense is as much a part of our constitution as that of feeling, seeing, or hearing. Here's the troublesome part. As a wise creator must have seen to be necessary in an animal destined to live in society. Now, Jefferson knew that there were a superabundance of different types, species of animals that were social creatures, bees, ants, and penguins, and puffins, my favorite animal for some silly reason. Many, many different types of social creatures. Now, he says, as a wise creature must see it necessary. So, social animals have a social sense. The implication of this seems to be that all social animals have a social sense. We might call it a moral sense. The human moral sense is just a faculty that enables us to understand how to live in a social setting to some extent. Yeah, I'll modify that in a bit. But so ants have a social sense that is species specific to them. So do penguins, and so do puffins and other social creatures, right? So what makes humans different from and superior to those sorts of animals? Now, I struggled with this for a while because I'm trying to think this left me at an impasse in how we're going to solve this problem, right? If other human social creatures have a moral sense of their own that is species specific, that if bats, for example, have a sense of morality with respect to battiness, puffins have a sense of morality with respect to puffininess, whatever the word may be, I don't know. Humans, again, we go back to humans not being distinct from other animals, but not being superior in any sense. Is any sense superior to other human beings, right? To qualify them for the right. Jefferson doesn't think other animals have a right to liberty. Now, the obvious answer is that humans have some sense of rationality, and I think that's attractive. I think that helps to some extent. Maybe all humans don't have a large amount of rationality, and humans are not essentially rational, as there's that thought. But humans have, each human has a modicum of rationality that enables him to help him through daily activities in life when rationality comes into play. That might be part of the answer, but also there's something in an 1820 letter to John Adams that hit me once again after having read this for 800 times that might help us out, that gets us out of the tangle, gets us out of the ravelment. If all other creatures have, all social creatures have a sense of right or wrong, is there anything distinct about humans' social sense? In other words, humans' moral sense? the letter to John Adams on 15 August 1820 tells us there is. Humans, this is his letter, Cartesian letter, where he says uh, he gives us the gospel of his materialism. And he says, I know I exist because I feel, therefore I exist. Descartes says, I think, therefore I exist. Jefferson says, I feel, therefore I exist. And he talks about feel bodies and so forth in motion. So he starts his epistemology. He knows everything not by thinking like Descartes, but by feeling. And how do we feel? It's the moral sense faculty that feels. Then he talks about feeling other bodies, feeling his own existence. And he talks about, he refers to the order, the cosmic order. The cosmos, the word cosmos in Greek just meant an ordered thing, so that the cosmos, having a certain sense of order, he doesn't, like Hume, infer analogically through a process of reason that because it's an ordered thing, by analogy, like a watch, we must infer that it has a creator. Jefferson says, no, I don't think my way through this. I feel human, I feel my existence, I feel other bodies, I feel God. He solves the problem of God's existence just by feeling. And that feeling comes through the moral sense. So, what distinguishes humans from other social creatures? Their feeling of God. Their moral sense is a feeling, is a sensing, among other things, of that sensing that truthfulness is important, that God exists, and God, we have duties to God, we have duties to other people, but we also know through our moral sense that God exists. It's doubtful, at least Jefferson gives no indication that any other creatures have that as a part of their social sense. And it might be that just, we can go back to the version, the weaker version that we rejected, where God created all humans. Humans have a God-given essence that distinguishes them from and makes them superior to other human beings. And because of that, they're all equal in a very sense, and that equality and that God-given essence makes them deserving of liberty in the social setting, the right to liberty. Of course, rationality has to come into play because rights need to be recognized, rationality. But the notion, I think we get out of the quandary, we disentangle ourselves from the ravelment by understanding that God can be felt, can be sensed through our moral sense. That makes humans distinct. And in some sense, I don't want to think Jefferson ever really believes humans were superior to, but in one sense, at least, humans are, say, superior to puffins in that humans can know the existence of God through feeling, through a moral sense. So this is one illustration of just how, we paint ourselves into philosophical corners when we do Thomas Jefferson scholarship, if we do it honestly. And at times we think we solve a problem, then we read something that provides, that creates another problem for us, and we have to try to wiggle our way out of that. And I think I've wiggled my way out of this, and I talk of this solution very, very cleanly and clearly in my The Disease of Liberty, which will be coming out later this year. Hope you enjoyed that, and we'll talk to you soon to do an episode of The Real Thomas Jefferson, TTFM.